Carlos King, at 45 years old, has done something that no one thought he would ever do, and it is shaking the entire love and marriage. Huntsville whirled to the core because Carlos has finally given the green light to remove Marsau and LaTisha Scott from the franchise, and not only that, but the way he did it, the timing, and the reasoning behind it has sparked endless conversations about what really goes on behind the cameras, what tensions had been building for years, and how this decision could change the future of the show forever. Because this is not just about two people being cut, this is about control, power, and the legacy of a franchise that has been filled with highs and lows since the day it started back in 2019, and the fact that Carlos himself made the move shows that the situation had reached a breaking point, one that had been simmering for a long time but finally exploded now. So let's take a slow and detailed look at everything that led to this moment, why the Scotts went from being central to the storyline to being pushed out, how the behind-the-scenes drama mixed with personal battles and business clashes, what the fan reactions look like, how this affects the network and the show's future, and also what it means for Carlos King's empire moving forward, because this decision is not small, it is huge, and it carries ripple effects across the entire brand that Carlos has been building for years. And to understand why this matters so much, we have to go back to the beginning of how Marsau and LaTisha even became such important parts of love and marriage. Huntsville in the first place, and why their removal feels like tearing a piece of the show's DNA out of it, because from day one, they were never just extras or side characters, they were part of the main vision that Carlos had when he brought the show to life, and that vision was built around three strong black power couples in Huntsville, Alabama, all working together to rebuild the city through business, real estate, and family life. And the Scotts were at the center of it, with LaTisha being shown as the determined Southern woman trying to balance motherhood and her own goals with the weight of being a wife to Marsau, who was portrayed as old school, traditional, and often the one sparking debates about gender roles and marriage expectations, and these two together created storylines that were not only dramatic but also reflective of real conversations happening in homes across America, which made them both relatable and frustrating depending on the viewer, and it was not just about marriage drama either, because their connections to other cast members like Melody and Martell Holt made the drama even juicier, with conflicts, alliances, and business deals all colliding in ways that drove ratings season after season, and on top of that, their businesses like Black Cigar Lounge and construction ventures gave them real credibility, because they were not just TV characters but also people representing the hustle, the grind, and the business culture of Huntsville, which Carlos wanted to showcase, and that is why fans either loved them or loved to hate them, but no matter what, you could not ignore them because they brought content. They brought drama, and they brought energy, so to see them now being removed is shocking, but the truth is that this did not happen overnight. This has been brewing for years behind the scenes where most viewers could not see, because while the audience only got the edited episodes filled with arguments, reconciliations, dinners, trips, and shocking reveals, what was happening behind the cameras was a totally different story, one that included contract negotiations, production meetings, editing disputes, and power struggles, and it is in those meetings where insiders say Carlos and the Scotts started to clash more and more. At first things were smooth, Carlos allowed them to show their lives and tell their stories, but as the seasons went on, both Marsau and LaTisha reportedly became unhappy with how they were being portrayed on screen. LaTisha felt editing often made her look weak or dependent, while Marsau felt his words were being twisted or clipped to make him look worse than he really was. And when the audience began criticizing them online, instead of seeing it as just part of reality TV, they blamed production and editing, which is where the trust between them and Carlos started to break down, and then it became even more intense when new cast members joined the show, because every new couple meant less screen time for the Scotts, and they allegedly started pushing harder for more control over how they were shown, wanting to protect their image and limit what parts of their marriage and business were filmed, but Carlos reportedly pushed back because he had a vision and did not want cast members dictating storylines, and this created a wall of tension that kept growing season after season. And then came the money side of things, which always adds fuel to the fire. By season 4 the Scotts were allegedly demanding higher pay, arguing that they were vital to the show's success and ratings. But from Carlos's side, he believed that no one was bigger than the show and that their constant demands were slowing everything down. And the biggest red flag came when they allegedly refused to film certain critical scenes that producers needed for the storyline, and when cast members refuse to film, it undermines everything because reality TV relies on cooperation, and Carlos saw that as unacceptable. And slowly the signs became visible to fans too because the Scotts began appearing less in promotional materials and less central to the major storylines, which made people speculate online that something was wrong, and now we know. They were right, because Carlos had reached his breaking point and decided that the only way forward was to remove them completely, but the way he did it was not quiet or subtle, it was bold, it was loud, and it sent a message to everyone involved, because Carlos did not just let the news leak or issue a quiet press release. Instead he made it clear on his own platform that certain cast members had become too difficult to work with and hinted that no one was bigger than the show, and fans quickly figured out that he was talking about Marsau and LaTisha, and within hours their exit was trending online, with fans split down the middle. On one side many people cheered, saying it was about time, accusing the Scotts of being controlling, evasive, and dragging down the energy of the show, with comments like, "Carlos saved the show," spreading everywhere, but on the other side loyal supporters of the Scotts were furious, calling them the heart of Huntsville and saying that removing them was a betrayal that damaged the foundation of the franchise, with posts like, "How can it be love and marriage? Huntsville without the Scotts," filling timelines, and the debate only grew bigger as bloggers, YouTubers, and podcasters all weighed in, some praising Carlos for protecting the show and others calling it a desperate rating stunt, and then Marsau and LaTisha themselves added fuel to the fire with cryptic social media posts, LaTisha posting about betrayal and loyalty, and Marsau saying things like, "Sometimes stepping away is the only way forward," which made it clear they were not happy but were also trying to control their narrative, and their fans flooded their comments with love and support, while critics accused them of playing victim, and meanwhile Carlos doubled down, saying tough choices had to be made and that the show needed new energy, which showed he was not backing off at all. And the industry also noticed because other producers and cast members from different shows began talking about how rare it is for producers to cut stars who helped build a franchise, and whether Carlos had made a bold genius move or a mistake, but either way it put him and the show at the center of headlines, and now the big question everyone is asking is what happens next, who replaces the Scotts, and how the show survives without them, because their exit does not just affect fans, it affects the entire cast and even the business side of things. Since their businesses were often filming locations and part of the Huntsville story itself, so producers now have to rethink how to keep the city connection strong while also keeping the drama alive. And for the other cast members this decision was a wake-up call, because if Carlos could cut Marsau and LaTisha after all these years, then no one is safe, and everyone now feels like their place could be in danger if they refuse to cooperate, and as for replacements, rumors are already swirling that Carlos is looking at other power couple in Huntsville or even outside in places like Atlanta or Birmingham, but new cast members are always risky because they lack the history and fan base that the Scotts brought, which could make the show feel disconnected from its roots, while others think this is the fresh energy the show desperately needs, so it could go either way, and then there is the possibility of the Scotts creating their own projects outside of Carlos's control, with fans speculating they could start a YouTube channel, pitch their own reality show, or even join another network, and if that happens, they could end up as Carlos's biggest competition, which makes this even more complicated, and at the same time Carlos is building his brand with spin-offs like Love and Marriage. DC, and if Huntsville survives this major shakeup, it will prove the franchise is strong enough to withstand anything, but if ratings fall, critics will say this was Carlos's biggest mistake, so this is a defining moment not just for the Scotts but for Carlos King himself, and that is why this story is so important because it is not just about removing a couple, it is about power, vision, and the future of a reality empire. And no matter which side fans fall on, whether they celebrate the Scotts leaving or mourn their exit, one thing is certain, Love and Marriage, Huntsville will never be the same again, and the next season will either prove Carlos right or prove his critics right, but for now this is the decision that everyone is talking about and the decision that will shape the future of the entire franchise for years to come.